Hello, I'm Paddy from creativemedia.org.uk. This looks a bit like an aerial view of a swimming bath with all the racing lanes, but as you can tell from these giant hands, this is no swimming pool, this is a bass guitar simulator. It's called iFretless, and I paid £14.99 for it, so £15 basically. The year at the moment is 2024, so that's the pricing then. I can play bass a little bit, but I'm just not very good at it. So I've bought this because I want quite often realistic sounding bass on my recordings. I even went to the extent of buying a bass guitar to try and add it to my recordings, and it just didn't sound good. On guitar, I'm mainly a rhythm guitarist, so I can play a bit of lead, but on a real bass guitar, it just sounds really bad. Lots of fret buzz, and I just have to keep practicing over and over and over again to try and get what I want. On this, I find it a lot easier. Well, here we've got like a 7-string guitar. I think you can turn on more than 7 if you want. And basically it's a load of samples, but the very clever thing is they've managed somehow to make an iPad velocity sensitive. You can hear from this rather dodgy playback that I'm having a bit of trouble with mine. And I'm not sure whether that's a fault of my iPad, because it works okay a lot of the time. You'll notice I've had a bit of a mishap with this one. There's some breaking in the screen, so that could be affecting the touch. And touch is affected in other programs too. And I've been jamming on this for quite a while today, and it's been fine. I've turned on the screen capture on this iPad as well in order to get a really good recording of what I'm playing. Well, this is a basic aggressive bass sound. So a bit of Rage Against the Machine there, and with some suitable guitars, I think that sounds quite convincing. And you'll notice, obviously there's some, I wasn't doing ham rolls like that. Doing some hammer-ons, and you can do pull-offs. And you're also getting some velocity sensitivity there. I don't know how on earth they've managed to program that, because it's the only bit of software I've come across on the iPad that's velocity sensitive, and even Apple seem to have to sell you a very expensive Apple Pencil, which is a powered device, in order to get pressure sensitivity into any of the art programs. Maybe that's a bit of an Apple earning extra money from their products scam. I don't know, but yeah, they've done it somehow. And basically there's a whole bunch of multi-samples, including you can hear a bit of fret buzz on some of those ones, which you could argue, if this is meant to be a fretless bass, you wouldn't get any fret buzz on a fretless bass. And also on a fretless bass, you'd be able to play different pitches in different places, but there are clearly fret divisions between the notes. But that said, you can bend all over the place and do vibrato too. Now it would be interesting if you could have done vibrato sideways like you would certainly on a lead guitar, maybe on a bass too. And you could even have these nice strings bending sideways. I do notice these strings wobble slightly, they animate when you play them, but the low ones don't animate slower than the high ones, so it's not totally realistic. I do notice that the high-pitched strings are thinner than the low-pitched strings as well, just like you get on a real guitar. And you can control how many strings you're going to see on the screen. You can have it down to 4, I think, or go up to more, I think 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that. Let's see. What settings have we got? Somewhere down here. You've got a number of frets, so that's how many frets you see across the screen. How many strings you see on the screen. Oh, you can have 12, 14 on the screen. So you could play this almost a bit like a hammer dulcimer, which would be interesting. You can change the intervals between strings. I was going to change this to fifths, because I play violin as my main instrument, and having fifth intervals would make sense, I would have thought, but just trying to play that Rage Against the Machine riff, I find it a lot more difficult, so I'm sticking with fourths for now for that. While I'm in here, you've got a lot of control. You've got an equalizer here, so you can change how your instrument sounds, even before you've recorded it, as it were. You've got reverb, so you can get a dry recording if you're putting it into a studio. An epic. And on the left here, you can change the pitch range of where you're recording. With that Rage Against the Machine riff, I haven't actually checked this, they start on a lower D, so they drop the tuning of the bass guitar and the lead guitar in order to get that riff. But on this, of course, you don't need to retune it, because you can already play the D straight away on the screen, so none of that tuning down. I think you could potentially use this as a live instrument if you don't have an actual bassist. And of course, with this, you can turn the bassist down much more easily. They might not have a stage cab. There are some interesting things in the MIDI mode. Now, you would think the MIDI mode would just control stuff on the MIDI input. I've got a keyboard plugged in at the moment. So you can have polyphonic stuff going on. Just pop over to my keyboard. Which makes this into quite a useful keyboard instrument, really. Yeah, I think in that mode, it also affects any slide you're doing. Affects everything, so it's like a channel bend. But I find the this mode seems to be the normal one for me. MPE 4 to 1, whatever that means. Because you can bend. You can bend the strings independently. So you can bend the strings independently. It'd be great if there'd been a sitar sample on this, because you could have done some really nice sitar kind of things. And you've actually got so you could actually play 6 strings at once and bend and vibrate them all independently, which I don't know quite why you'd need to do that, but it's quite useful. Doesn't really sound that realistic, a kind of long bend like that. But you don't always want realistic sounding bass necessarily. I'll kind of just zoom past a lot of these things here. You've got a tuning thing, that's very useful. Reduce that reverb size a little bit, I think, to something more useful. But yeah, this makes quite a useful creative instrument as well as a realistic bass. And there are a whole range of different basses on here. I won't get to all of these. The FM synth, that sounds to me like a bass, but probably because I grew up in the 80s and there were so many DX7 basses being used in pop music that I just thought that was a normal bass. These are all presets, so each preset stores your choice of instrument, which is one of these. It's a fairly small range, but this is a sort of specialist bass instrument. So it stores the instrument, your volume range. So this is kind of like a compressor almost. If you don't want your bass to be too quiet, you can kind of compress it without actually having to put it through a compressor, which could well give you better sound quality. Yeah, and it'll store the reverb and also your keyboard settings. So if you wanted a particular, if you wanted to have like a polyphonic input for one instrument, you could save that as a setting. I don't know what its polyphony is, but I seem to be able to play quite a lot of notes at once. So I'll choose one of these. Yeah, so you have some synth sounds as well, just sort of waveforms. So you can do some things which would be a bit tricky to play on the keyboard with pitch bend, and some things you probably couldn't play on the keyboard with pitch bend, like so you can mess around with tuning a little bit. And get some nice sort of beat frequencies, I think they're called. I think that was working better on the snarling synth. Let's see if I can find that one. Snarling synth. Let's move that up a bit as well. So you can have some fun making some drones. Drones and such like with that. The great thing about this synth is there is a free version. If you look up iFretless, I found a version which just has, I think, the aggressive bass setting on it. It doesn't seem to be particularly locked down. I couldn't change the string intervals, but everything else on there seemed to work okay, and it played all the note ranges and the velocity ranges. So if you just need a bass and for free, I'd go for that one, give it a go. And if you want to have the full version with a lot more instruments, I'm kind of wondering whether I really needed to buy this, but I kind of felt I ought to in order to do a proper review. This same company makes a saxophone and a guitar and a brass instrument as well, I think, which I'm guessing work in a similar way. I'm slightly tempted to get the guitar one because my lead guitar abilities are a bit limited as well. They do a package for £25, which includes all 4 instruments. Otherwise, I think the guitar is £9 or £10, and I think the other ones are £10 each as well. So that might be worth going for. I hope that's helped you make your mind up about whether to get this instrument. Certainly enables you to come up with some chords that you might not think of on a keyboard. So even if you're a keyboardist, and this will take a keyboard input, but I think you get a more realistic sounding bass when you use this actually with the screen. You'd probably get more accurate velocity control via a keyboard, particularly when you've got a slightly dodgy broken screen like mine. But all in all, I think it's a pretty good buy, and I plan to use it on my acoustic recordings and maybe some of my electric recordings as well. Thanks for listening.